It had been quiet for months. The videos stopped. The photos disappeared. The updates that once came weekly turned into silence that stretched long enough for people to start asking questions. The Whittaker family, once the center of one of the internet's most unusual and heartbreaking stories, had seemingly vanished again into the hills of West Virginia. Then one evening, Brian returned with a new video. His voice was tired, like someone who had been carrying a truth that weighed heavier the longer he held it. He said he had waited to speak because he wanted the information to be right. "People have been asking for updates," he said, "and I didn't want to speak until I could tell you something real." He started by talking about the absence, the long silence since the last time viewers saw the family. The last videos had shown fragments: Betty on the porch, BJ sitting quietly nearby, Larry in the background. After that, there was nothing. The past few months, Brian explained, have been hard on everyone involved. There's been confusion, legal matters, and a lot of waiting. He looked straight into the camera and said the thing everyone wanted to hear. There's news about Timmy, Lorraine, and Ray. According to Brian, meetings had been happening quietly between several parties, lawyers, state workers, and family advocates, trying to figure out a sustainable plan for the Whittakers' future. "It's not just about filming a video," he said. "It's about what comes next for them. For real." Brian described how the last year had been filled with emotional highs and devastating lows. When the family was first separated, emotions ran wild, both in the holler and online. People thought the cameras could fix everything, he said. But what people didn't see were the long nights, the phone calls, the tears from Betty, the frustration from everyone who wanted answers but didn't have any. The new update began with Timmy. Brian said, "Timmy has been adjusting better than expected. He's safe." He repeated several times. "He's in a stable environment with people who look after him. He has routines, meals, care, and quiet." Timmy, who had always been at the center of the family's protective circle, was finally getting structure. Still, Brian made it clear that this didn't mean he was gone forever. "He asks about home," he said. "He remembers the porch, the dogs, the sounds. He asks when he's going back. And that's the hardest part, because the answer isn't simple." Then he talked about Lorraine. Lorraine's health has taken priority. He said, "She needs consistent care, and for now that's being provided. She's being looked after. She's stable. She still smiles. She still sings sometimes." There was a pause before he added, "She misses her family, they all do." As for Ray, Brian said his situation is the most delicate. Ray's had a tougher time adjusting. He explained, "He's quiet most days, keeps to himself. He's comfortable, but you can tell there's a part of him that still wants to be home. And that's something that's not easy to put into words." He sighed deeply and looked down before continuing. "Everyone wants to know if they're coming home. And I'll tell you the truth. There's a chance, but it's not as easy as opening a door." Brian revealed that the process involves paperwork, inspections, and requirements that must be met before any reunification can happen. "It's not like the movies," he said. "You can't just bring someone back home because you miss them. The home has to meet certain standards: safety, cleanliness, medical readiness. Everything has to line up, and right now it's a waiting game." He mentioned Betty's role in all of this. "She's trying her best," he said. "She's tired, but she's fighting. She's made phone calls, signed papers, asked questions. Sometimes she doesn't get clear answers. But she's not giving up." Brian leaned forward and said that the house, the same home viewers had seen countless times, had been cleaned, repaired, and inspected more than once. "People think cleaning it up will automatically bring the family home," he said, "but that's not how it works. The decision isn't just about the house, it's about support. Medical, financial, emotional. Everything has to be in place." He also spoke about the internet reaction. "There are so many people talking," he said. "Some are trying to help, others just want drama. It's easy to sit online and say what should happen, but none of them are there when Betty's crying or when the phone rings at midnight because someone's scared or sick." He admitted there had been moments when he thought about walking away. "You get tired," he said quietly. "You get blamed for things you didn't do. You try to help and people twist your words, but I care about them. I've seen Things no one else has seen. I can't just walk away from that. Brian said that when he went back recently, BJ met him outside. She told me we just want to see them again. That's all she said, and you could feel it. That kind of heartbreak doesn't need a long sentence, and it's in her eyes. He wanted viewers to understand that the process now is in the hands of legal and social authorities, not content creators or fans. At this point, he said, it's about paperwork and patience. Then he paused again as if choosing his next words carefully. But I'll tell you this, he said slowly. They're not forgotten. I talk to people who are working behind the scenes. I get updates. Things are moving. Slowly, but they're moving. Brian promised that as soon as he's allowed to share more, he will. I know people want closure. He said, but the story's not over. It's just paused. He ended the video with a mixture of frustration and hope. I've been called everything. Opportunist, liar, fake, he said. But the truth is, I've spent more time in those mountains than most people talking about them online. I've seen the real family. I've seen their love and their pain. That's what keeps me coming back. Before signing off, Brian looked directly into the lens and said, if you've been praying for them, don't stop. If you've been waiting, keep waiting. They still need that hope, because it's all they've got right now. He exhaled, rubbed his eyes, and sat back. That's what's next, he said softly. It's not the end. Just another hard chapter. When Brian's video ended, the internet immediately split in two. Some people flooded his comment section with words of support. You're the only one who still cares, they wrote. Others accused him of dragging the story back into the spotlight just to make money. But for the first time in months, the silence around the Whittakers had broken, and that alone reignited an entire community that had been waiting for answers. In the days that followed, Brian went live again, this time responding to the waves of questions that came pouring in. His tone was calmer, steadier, but you could hear the weight of exhaustion in his voice. He started by addressing the critics first. You can call me what you want, he said, but I'm the one who's been out there. I've sat on that porch. I've seen the tears, the confusion, the fear. I'm not here for clout. I'm here because they matter. He looked directly into the lens for a long moment before continuing. If this was about views, I would have kept posting nonstop, but I stopped for a reason. To give them peace, to give myself peace. But now people deserve to know what's really going on. Then he talked about Betty. For months, her name had been whispered online. Some called her the heart of the family. Others blamed her for not doing enough to bring everyone home. But Brian described her differently. She's carrying the weight of the whole situation, he said. She wakes up every day hoping today's the day she'll get a call saying they're coming back. She prays for it. She talks to herself, sometimes saying, maybe, next week. And next week turns into next month. According to Brian, Betty has been meeting with local representatives and making calls to agencies to check on the family's status. She's not just sitting there, he insisted. She's trying, but it's not easy when the system moves this slow. Everything's paperwork, signatures, and phone calls that lead to more phone calls. He then spoke about a new layer of the situation that most viewers didn't know. The possibility of an attorney being brought in to navigate the financial and legal confusion left behind after months of broken promises. There's still leftover tension from the earlier GoFundMe drama, he admitted, and that's making things harder. There's confusion about where the money went, who's supposed to be managing it, and what was promised. And until that gets sorted out, it's slowing everything down. Brian said the lawyers representing both sides, those helping the Whittakers, and those involved in the fundraising efforts, have been in talks, but progress is slow. It's not about greed, he said. It's about clarity. Nobody wants to make a move that could mess up the chance of them being reunited. Then his voice softened. You have to understand something. The state doesn't care about internet drama. They care about paperwork conditions and compliance. If the documents aren't right, nothing moves forward. So even though we want to see them together again, it's not up to feelings. It's up to forms. He paused, rubbing his hands together. But I'll tell you this, they still want to be together. That's what's keeping them going. For the next several minutes, Brian recounted moments that reminded him how deeply connected the family remains despite their separation. He spoke about a phone call he overheard between Betty and one of the caretakers where Timmy was staying. She just kept saying, "Tell him Mama loves him," over and over, like she thought if she said it enough it would carry through the phone and reach his heart. He said Lorraine, too, has been asking for Betty and BJ during her medical checkups. She recognizes voices. He said she knows who's missing. Then Brian shifted gears. He said a few days before recording he'd gone back to Odd, West Virginia, the small community where the Whittakers live, to check on the property. "It's quiet," he said. "You can still hear the wind in the trees. The house looks the same, but it feels different. There's a kind of emptiness in the air. You feel the absence." He walked through the yard, past the old vehicles, the worn-out furniture, and the familiar porch where so many interviews had been filmed. BJ came out, he said, and she smiled, but it was tired. You could tell she missed them. She asked if I'd heard anything new, and when I told her there's still hope, she said, "We'll wait." Just like that. "We'll wait." He repeated that line slowly as if it had stayed with him. "That's what makes this family different." He said, "They don't have much, but they have patience and loyalty. Even when they've been hurt, they wait. They don't lash out. They don't attack anyone online, they just wait and hope." Brian then turned to the camera again. People online like to speculate. They make assumptions about who's helping, who's lying, who's exploiting. But they don't see the full picture. The truth is, this is a family that never asked to be famous. They never asked for the world to watch. They just wanted to survive. He began reading aloud some of the comments that had flooded his inbox. People offering prayers, others expressing frustration. One person wrote, "Why don't you just bring them home yourself?" He said, "If it were that simple, I would have done it yesterday. But this isn't a movie. You can't just pick people up and move them without permission. There are laws, there are safety checks, and there's a process that we have to respect, even when it feels unfair." Then came the part that surprised many viewers. Brian revealed that there had been quiet discussions about building or buying a new home for the Whittakers, one that could pass inspection and provide proper care. "It's not confirmed yet," he said, "but there's a real chance it could happen. It would take help, donations, and cooperation, but it's on the table. The goal is to make sure when they come back to something safe." He explained that several people have expressed interest in contributing. Builders, donors, even a few fans. But everyone's waiting for the legal side to clear. "I'm not taking a cent from anyone until I know it's legit," he said. "I've learned my lesson. Everything has to be transparent." As he continued, Brian's tone shifted from defensive to determined. "I'm not going to let this story end in silence," he said. "These people deserve better. They deserve to have their voices heard again, not as a spectacle but as humans who have survived more than most of us could handle." He recalled visiting the family's property last winter when snow covered the ground and the old wooden porch creaked under his feet. "It hit me," he said. "All the laughter, all the moments we caught on film. It's like they're still there. You can almost hear them if you stand still long enough." He said he's been in touch with some of the neighbors too, who still check in on Betty and BJ. They make sure she's got what she needs. He said groceries, supplies, rides, people around their care. It's just that nobody knows what's really happening behind the curtain. Then Brian leaned forward again and spoke with more conviction. "Here's what's next," he said. "Over the next few months, the team involved is working to secure medical assistance, verify conditions, and re-establish family contact. It's not fast, but it's happening. The hope is to get at least supervised visits first, maybe Betty seeing Timmy and Lorraine again in person. That's step one." He said Betty has been told to stay patient and continue communicating with the social workers handling the case. "She's trying," he said. "It's not easy. She gets frustrated, but she's trying. Every time I talk to her, she asks, 'Do you think they're okay?' And I tell her, 'Yeah, they're okay. They're waiting for you too.'" At this point, Brian's voice cracked slightly. "It's hard to tell her that," he admitted, "because I know how much she blames herself, but this isn't her fault. None of this is her fault." He sat back in his chair and sighed. You can't imagine what it's like to love someone who's close enough to see but too far to reach. That's what this is for her. For all of them. He ended the live by asking people to focus on kindness. You don't have to agree with everything I do, he said. You don't even have to like me. But if you care about the Whittakers, then show it by being decent. Spread facts, not hate, hope, not rumors. Before logging off, he looked straight at the lens again. They're coming back, he said softly. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow. But they're coming back, I feel. The live ended, but the conversation it started carried through the night. Thousands of comments, hundreds of shares, and once again the Whittaker family name echoing across the internet. When Brian's second video finished, something strange happened online. The internet went quiet again, but not the kind of silence that comes from indifference. It was the kind that lingers before a storm. A pause filled with questions, disbelief, and cautious hope. For weeks people had been scrolling, through posts analyzing every word Brian said, comparing his tone to older videos, searching for signs that the family's return was really possible. In the small town of Odd, West Virginia, life moved slower, but even there the noise from the outside world had seeped in. Betty, the heart of the Whittaker family, had become aware of everything being said. The hopes, the doubts, the rumors. Friends in town would stop by her porch and ask, "Did you hear what Brian said? Is it true? Are they coming home?" Betty would nod, her voice soft and uncertain. "I don't know," she'd say, "I just hope." Brian's words had reached her too. He'd called after the video went viral again. The conversation was simple, but heavy. "People are still talking about you," he told her. Betty sighed. "I just want them home," she said. "That's all I care about." To outsiders, her statement might sound small, almost routine, but for those who'd followed the Whittakers' journey from the beginning, it carried a weight that no headline could capture. Betty's entire world had revolved around keeping her family together, through poverty, health struggles, and the intense spotlight of fame. When they were separated, something in her cracked. Now hearing that there might be a chance, however slim, brought both hope and pain. Brian shared with his followers that he had been trying to prepare Betty for the reality ahead. "She has to understand this is going to take time," he said. "It's not a door you just knock on and walk through. There's a process." He explained that the legal side of things, the housing standards, the medical checks, the agency reviews, all had to be cleared before Timmy, Lorraine, and Ray could even think about returning. Still, he said there was progress. "There's a group of people quietly working behind the scenes," he revealed. "They're not online, they're not making videos, they're just doing the work. They care about this family, and that's what matters." The mention of behind the scenes stirred curiosity and skepticism online. Comment sections filled up with speculation. Some viewers insisted they knew who was helping, while others doubted anything was really happening at all. Some even accused Brian of exaggerating, but among the noise, one consistent emotion appeared: hope. In one of the quiet moments during his latest update, Brian described driving back to the family's neighborhood after months of not filming. It's like going back to a memory," he said. "The road hasn't changed. The trees are still there, the same ones that shaded the porch during those interviews. The house looks the same from the outside, but it feels different. You feel the emptiness." He said he parked across the street and sat for a few minutes before walking up. BJ came out first, he recalled. She didn't say much. She just nodded. I asked how Betty was doing. She said, "She's okay, just waiting." That word again. Waiting. That family's done more waiting than most people do in a lifetime. Brian explained that Betty had been working with someone local to make sure the home stayed in decent condition in case authorities came by again. "They've done some cleaning, some fixing," he said. "But it's hard when you're running on empty. Every improvement takes effort, and every bit of effort costs energy she barely has left." Then he paused and admitted something personal. "I know people think I'm doing this for attention," he said. "But I've spent real time there. I've seen Betty cry when no one's watching. I've seen her look down that road thinking maybe she'll see them walking back. That kind of heartbreak doesn't go away. You don't fake that." He told a story that hit many viewers deeply. "One night when I was leaving, she stopped me and said, 'Tell them I love them. Tell them Mama's waiting.' And I said, I'll tell them, Betty, but the truth is, I don't even know if the message will reach them. I just hope it does. That line, tell them Mama's waiting, became a kind of echo online. People commented it under. Videos turned it into captions, wrote it on fan art and in posts of support. It became a symbol of hope that somehow, someday, the Whittakers would be whole again. Meanwhile, Brian tried to stay transparent about what was happening. He began posting updates about the legal process, explaining the steps needed for family reunification. They need proof of a livable environment, he said in one clip. They need to show their support, healthcare stability, consistency. This isn't just about walls and a roof. It's about showing they can live safely and comfortably. He shared that there was talk of possibly getting a caregiver to assist Betty when the family returned. It's being discussed. He said, they're considering bringing in someone part-time to help with the medical side of things. Make sure Ray and Lorraine get what they need. As Brian kept explaining the situation more, people began to understand that this wasn't about instant results. It was about rebuilding a family that had been through years of hardship, loss, and media attention. It's not the fairy tale ending people think it is, Brian said. This is a real family trying to find peace. Offline. Betty continued to pray, she told a neighbor she'd been lighting a candle every night near the family photos that still hung on her wall. I talk to them, she said softly. I tell them we'll be together soon. Brian revealed that even though the situation was uncertain, the emotional bond between the family members was still unbreakable. When they talk about each other, he said, it's like they never left. It's not if they come home. It's always when that kind of faith keeps them alive. He also addressed the frustration people felt about the lack of new footage. I could film every day, he said, but what would that do? It wouldn't speed anything up, it would just stir the pot. I want this to be handled right. As the video continued, Brian's tone turned reflective. When I first met them, he said, I didn't know what to expect, but what I found wasn't just a family struggling, it was a family surviving. They've been through poverty, loss, misunderstanding, and judgment from the whole world. And somehow they still laugh. They still love. That's rare. He also touched on the toll the situation had taken on him personally. This story has changed me, he said. You can't see what I've seen and not come out different. I've learned patience. I've learned compassion. And I've learned that sometimes the best thing you can do for people is just not give up on them. He spoke about his critics again, but this time there was no anger, only resignation. You can say what you want, he said. But when you stand in that holler, when you see the sun go down behind those trees and hear nothing but the sound of the wind, you realize this isn't about clicks or clout. It's about people, real people. The next day he visited Betty again. She was sitting on the porch just like always. You still filming? She asked. Not today. He replied, just wanted to check on you. She smiled weakly and said, thank you for not forgetting us. That moment became the closing image of his next upload, a quiet shot of the house, the trees, and Betty's silhouette in the doorway. Underneath the caption read, she's still waiting. Viewers flooded the comment section with thousands of messages of encouragement and prayer. Some promised to write letters to the family. Others said they would donate if a new legitimate fund was created to support their return. A few remained skeptical, but even they couldn't ignore the emotion in Betty's eyes. In one of his final words from that update, Brian said, people ask me what's next, and honestly, I don't know everything, but I know this. As long as they're breathing, there's still a chance. And that's enough reason to keep going. He leaned back, exhaled, and said quietly, it's slow, it's painful, but it's happening. Bit by bit, it's happening. The camera lingered for a few seconds before fading to black. Across social media, one thing became clear. For all the debate, for all the division, the world still cared about the Whittakers. And even though the road ahead was uncertain, people were watching, waiting, and believing again. Weeks passed after Brian's last update, and though the noise of social media began to fade again. The echo of his words stayed alive in quiet corners of the internet. The story of the Whittaker family, their separation, their struggle, and their slow road toward reunion, had become something larger than a viral phenomenon. It was now a symbol of patience, faith, and the complexity of love in the face of hardship. And then without warning, another post appeared. It wasn't a video this time. It was a message written in plain text on Brian's community page. The headline read, "A new beginning for the Whittakers." Within hours, thousands of people had shared it. The message was short but full of meaning. "We're taking steps. Betty's working with people to rebuild what was lost. A new home is being planned, one that meets every requirement. This time it's real." The reactions came fast. Some cried, others were cautious, but for the first time in months, hope didn't feel like a rumor. It felt like a plan. A few days later, Brian returned with another video. This time he wasn't filming from his usual setup. The camera showed him outside walking through a muddy patch of land bordered by trees and open sky. "This," he said, motioning behind him, "is where it might happen. This could be the new beginning." He explained that after months of discussions and negotiations, a small group of people, donors, advocates, and locals, had come together to explore the possibility of building a safe, accessible home for the family. "It's still early," he said. "Nothing's set in stone, but this is the kind of progress we've been waiting for." He knelt down, picking up a handful of dirt. "This might not look like much," he said, "but it's hope, it's solid ground." The idea, according to Brian, was to create a permanent home that could pass inspections and provide medical access for Ray and Lorraine. "It's not just a house," he said. "It's a step toward bringing them home." Then he turned serious. "But before we can even break ground, there are things that need to happen. The paperwork, the permissions, the funding. We have to do this the right way. No shortcuts, no mistakes." He explained that Betty was on board and had already met with 2 people involved in the project, one from a local construction company and another from the county's housing office. "She cried when we told her the plan," Brian said. "She kept saying, 'You mean they could really come home?'" He paused for a moment before adding, "I told her, yes, Betty, if everything goes right, they can." That moment, captured in his words more than in visuals, spread across the internet like wildfire. For months, people had been waiting for something tangible, something that sounded like progress. And now they finally had it. Later in the same video, Brian played a short clip of Betty speaking directly to viewers for the first time in months. She sat on her porch, the wind blowing through her hair, her hands folded in her lap. Her voice trembled but carried strength. "I just want to thank everybody who didn't forget about us," she said. "It's been hard, real hard, but we're still here and we're waiting on our family to come home. I pray every day for that. I just want to see them again." She paused and looked away, blinking back tears. "If you've been praying for us, thank you. That's what keeps me going." The clip lasted less than 2 minutes, but it hit harder than anything Brian could have scripted. It reminded viewers that behind the online debate, behind the headlines and speculation, there was still a real woman sitting on that porch, holding on to faith through all the noise. Brian's next words were simple but heavy. "That's why I do this," he said. "Because when you see that look in her eyes, you realize she's not asking for fame, she's asking for her family." The next segment of his video showed something new. Small signs of progress on the property. A local handyman had volunteered to help fix parts of the old home while the plans for the new one were being finalized. "We've got new boards going up," Brian explained. "We're clearing out debris. We're making sure the space is safe." He showed glimpses of neighbors stopping by to help, one bringing paint, another hauling away old metal. "The community is stepping up," he said. "They've been quiet for a while, but now they're showing love." In another clip, BJ could be seen helping sweep the porch. She didn't talk much, but her actions said enough. She was preparing for her family, for the cameras, for the possibility of life returning to something like normal. Then Brian shared what he called the next big step. The lawyers and caseworkers had agreed to schedule a visitation, the first in nearly a year, between Betty and Timmy. It's just a visit, he said, but it's something after everything they've been through. Just seeing each other again could change everything. He warned viewers not to expect footage of the visit. This isn't content, he said firmly. This is personal. I'm not filming it. I'm just letting you know it's happening. That decision drew mixed reactions online. Some praised him for his respect while others accused him of withholding updates. But Brian didn't care. This isn't about clicks anymore, he said. It's about closure. A week later, Brian went live again. This time visibly emotional. He began by saying he'd spoken to Betty after the visit. She told me she saw him. He said, his voice cracking slightly. She said Timmy looked healthy. He smiled. He didn't say much, but he knew her. He recognized her. The chat section of the live stream flooded with comments. People typed crying emojis, heart emojis, prayers, and words of encouragement. Brian continued. She said when she saw him, she felt like the whole world stopped. She said, "He's still my boy." He took a deep breath. That moment, that's what this was all for. He paused again before revealing that Lorraine and Ray were next in line for visitation approval. It's a process, he said, but it's moving. It's really happening. Then, almost as if to prepare viewers for the future, Brian added, "It's not going to be perfect. There will be setbacks. There will be days when things feel stuck again. But this is progress. This is the start of healing." The video ended with a long message from Brian recorded at night in his car. The only light came from the dashboard, illuminating his face in dim blue tones. His voice was steady, but reflective. "I've learned something from all of this," he said. "When you work with families like this, families that have been through pain and judgment, you realize that people are complicated. They make mistakes, they fall, but they also love harder than anyone else." He leaned closer to the camera. "There's been so much talk about me, about them, about money, about motives, but at the end of the day, none of that matters. What matters is love. What matters is faith. What matters is family." He sighed, his voice softening. "I don't know when the next update will come. I don't know what the future looks like, but I do know this. They're closer now than they've been in a long time, and that's something to hold on to." For a long moment, he didn't say anything. The sound of crickets filled the silence. Then with a small smile, he said, "Betty's not giving up, neither am I." The screen faded to black, and then a final message appeared in white letters, for Timmy, for Lorraine, for Ray, for home. The comments poured in overnight. Thousands of people left messages of love, prayers, and promises to keep following the story. Some even offered to volunteer, donate, or write letters of support to the family. And though no one knew exactly when the Whittakers would finally be together again, for the first time in a long time, it didn't feel impossible. In that little corner of West Virginia, under the same porch light that had glowed through years of struggle, Betty waited, the same way she always had, believing that soon, the road her family had been traveling would lead them right back home. Thank you for watching this video. Click here to watch another video that might interest you.